I recently interviewed Margaretcho, and we were talking about Fire Island and her experiences on Provincetown, which I also love.
Yeah.
And this was obviously before I saw the movie, because this was like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. And she sort of alluded to the story that she tells at the dinner party about, she wasn't as graphic about the story with the flip phone, but from what I understand, that is a legit Margaretcho story that she like that actually happened to her.
Yeah, and that was actually one of my best memories on set, I think, because the whole cast was together, and Margaret sat at the head of the table, and it's this scene where all the boys are convening for dinner.
The two houses are having a dinner party.
The two houses and some other special guests are convening, and they're having a dinner party, and Margaret is cooked, and she's sort of running stuff at the end of the table, and she's telling us a story. And I remember we got it a few different ways. We got it as scripted. We got it where she told a funny story, which is, what ended up being in the movie about, I won't spoil it, but like an encounter she had in the meat rock, which is like the woods of Fire Island.
It involves a flip phone for life.
It does. And the possible discovery of a sexually transmitted infection on a sexual partner. But she also told very poignant, personal, real stories. And we got takes of her telling more serious stuff too, about friends that she had known and lost. And so we got it many different ways. But what I was so struck by was that she was so filled to the brim with these types of stories. And I shouldn't have been struck by it because she is such an icon, and she's lived this queer experience for so long. And
I felt like she was crucial. Like, I feel like I know that originally her part was written for like an older gay man. And
it was actually cast with other people too. I mean, originally it was going to be, I won't say who, but like a fancy gay actor, who is an older gentleman, and then he had to drop out, and the part was reconceived for Margaret when she was approached for it, and it came out that she wanted to do it. And now I actually think it's the only choice for that role.
It's pivotal because you need that lesbian experience.
Certainly you need a female energy.
You need the female energy, and she's so hilarious and warm, and Fire Island is not just made up of, even the Pines, like I go there. So like I like that representation even for myself. Legit, a friend texted me who he watched the movie, and I literally got a text saying, by the way, he's like, by the way, I love the movie and I fully see you in 30 years as like Margaretcho with well, hopefully like I'll have people around.
That has its pros and cons. Yeah, right.
I was like, I love that you're saying that, but
yeah, I think it's so great to have that representation, obviously, and not even just in a sense of like, yay, we checked a box, because I think that that's like a really shitty way to look at something sometimes. And just in terms of the energy of the cast together, she was essential, because another thing you have to remember is like, this is someone who is a radical queer stand-up, and she's an Asian woman, and so obviously she had impacted Bowen and Joel as, developing talents and as young children, really. I mean, because when we were teenagers, we were children. If the impact that she had on me is even 1/8 of the one that she had on Joel and Bowen, then it's immeasurable, because you're talking about someone who's like truly a comedian's comedian too. And so formative on all of our lives and our senses of humor.
Now, I want to know, because I'm so familiar with both the Pines and Cherry Grove, I want to know which parts, because I know you only filmed on Fire Island for 2 weeks, but the total shoot was like 6 weeks. Which
Correct.
Pieces were filmed on like a soundstage?
I will blow your mind. So this is some movie magic behind the scenes for everyone that's seen the movie. Everything exterior outside the Fire Island Pines was shot in the Fire Island Pines, except the house where we stay was shot on Long Island. That was in Old Westbury. So we got that house. Margaret's house that's our house in the movie. That was shot in Old Westbury. The rich people's house was shot in Sands Point. So that was all the way up on North Shore of Long Island, like, where all those mansions are. And the pavilion and the ice palace are sets. So we did not actually shoot inside. And this to me is like one of the great testaments to how incredible our crew was. And I just want to say, like, really stress this, like, our crew was unbelievable. Those interior exterior transitions, like from the Ice Palace underwear party to the inside to outside inside, like, they're seamless.
But they really recreated the pavilion. I was certain
To a
you
T.
filmed the pavilion at the pavilion.
We did not. So when we're doing the karaoke scene, singing the Sometimes by Britney Spears, and then we go outside, that is weeks apart. And we shot the pavilion on a set in Brooklyn, and then we walked outside and we were shooting actually on the pavilion dock, which is where, you know, my character has like emotional moment. And but yeah, that was just directed and edited and designed so seamlessly because all those interiors are sets.
Now, there's one thing you left out, which my friend, so I had watched it first like a few weeks ago, and then the other night I had friends over, actually friends that I share a share house with on the island, and so we had a viewing party here, and my one friend shouted out, "That is not the pantry."
It is not. It is not.
He's like, those shelves are too high. I was like, first of all, I don't think they have onions. Like, I could be wrong, but like the produce didn't. He's like, the shelving is too high. But on my first watch, I was like, it didn't cross my mind. I just like took it at face value.
Right. We could not shoot in the pantry because that would actually be sort of like, you know, occupying like the only grocery store on the island.
Yeah.
And also, I think there might have been a little bit of drama with the pantry because, you know, a lot of what we talk about in regards to the pantry is how expensive it is and them denting cans to try to get like, you know, discounts. But we made sure to throw in some really positive things about the pantry too, because it is iconic. And as long as we got to represent like a true pantry girl, we succeeded. And Marsha Belsky, a friend of ours, is a comedian who came in and she put that messy bun in, she put that sweatshirt on, that sleepy little sweatshirt, those little lacrosse shorts, the socks with slides, you know, like she was giving pantry girl. And I actually was one of the pantry girls for Halloween last year.
I was just going to bring that up. I was literally waiting for you to finish so I could say, well, let's not forget your Halloween costume.
Yep, it was iconic. Honestly, I think it's my most proud. That's my most proud Halloween costume ever. And way back in the day, than the great before, when you could dress up as a Harry Potter character without feeling weird, I was actually on a sexy Harry Potter's list. Okay, so this is huge for my Pines Pantry character that she was able to out legacy that.
Wow. Now, I want to know, I know you're very close with your parents, good, you know, still married, Long Island parents.
Yeah.
How did you prepare them for your moment?
What happens to the character?
Yeah.
Well, they are really supportive and respectful of what I do as an actor. And I told them about it. So I came back and I said that I had worked with an intimacy coordinator because there was a sex scene in the movie. And I explained to them that the issue of consent is in question. And I basically kind of told them, you know, about the challenge that it was like as an actor before I told them like about like the nudity. So I really just told them about that and that it served the plot and, you know, that it would be happening. I didn't like, you know, Titanic, Kate Winslet them where I like put my hands over their eyes. I mean, I didn't sit next to them at the premiere. Let's just say that. I had one of my friends sit in between us and my friend Sudi who sat next to me was like, do you want to sit next to your mom? And I was like, no, it's okay. And, you know, it happened and they saw it and I'm sure they're going to watch it again on Hulu. I hope they do. I hope to have much more sex on camera as characters other than myself because it means I'll be playing characters with full experiences. Yeah. Or I had never really done anything like this before in terms of a sex scene or I'd never been this nude on camera before. You know, I'm just not used to any aspect of it. And honestly, I had never really played a character with an arc before.
One final question I have about the movie was, were there any alternate titles? Like, was it ever potentially going to be called The Pines, or what were some of the alternate titles?
One title that was thrown out there was Pines, and then The Pines. I liked Pines because I thought it meant like pining, but also it was The Pines.
Ooh.
Like ultimately, I do think Fire Island is the best title. But Joel really wanted it to be called Trip. It was actually originally called Trip at Quibi, and then it changed. But you know, there was of course like the first thought thing to call it like Pines and Prejudice, which I'm really happy we didn't. But there were other titles thrown out there that I think before we landed on Fire Island, which feels so declarative and big, and there were definitely a lot of conversations about what to call it. But ultimately, I do think that Fire Island is the best title of it because, an island on fire, like in terms of like emotionally, and the you get the inflamed sense of the state of affairs, the emotional sort of mentality everyone's in, and it is the name of the place, and people do know it as the iconic destination that is for queers. So
were any of your like the iconic like Marissa Tomei, the scene with you and Tomas, which like is clearly like the breakout scene, was any of that improvised? Like how much of your stuff was improvised?
I improvised a lot of jokes that ended up getting used, but I, of course, performed the script. So it is Joel Kim's script, and I also think that any improvisation that I do in a script that Joel Kim wrote, that's his stuff because he's created the characters and the situations. And so, I never take credit. I always just try to amplify and bring what I can bring. And I think that Joel knows me as a talent. He knows I'm an improviser. And I think he wrote that role for me so that I could inhabit it and do those things. And he certainly never seemed to have like a chapped ass about me adding a joke or punching something up in a way that I felt was natural to me. But in a scene like the Marissa Tomei heads up scene, Andrew Ahn, our director, said, so we're not going to script this. It's like, you're going to just play heads up with Conrad with Marissa Tomei as the topic, and you and Tomas, I want you to do the scene. And I was like, got it. And Tomas, they're from Staten Island, so they had like a Marissa Tomei, My Cousin Vinny vocabulary. They knew the reference well, even though they're so young. They're so culturally literate and so talented. But for me, it was just like a really good opportunity to employ my like tri-state area accent and say those iconic lines. And luckily for me, I get to work with someone like Tomas, who is such an energy match for me and such a great kitty to my Lydia. So it was very easy for us to sort of like get on board about the amount of energy we were going to bring and just how upset we were going to get. Because when you're working with someone like Tomas, who is like an endless fount of energy, I'll go there too. Like, and that's just fun. And they really let us just scream at Conrad Ricamora for a long time. I mean, we probably got like at least 30, 40 minutes of footage of that. Tomas was really hoarse afterwards. But yeah,
when you call him a flop at the end, like that's clearly you.
Yeah, that's me. I mean, you have to. I always think like, that's character creation anyway. You have what's on the page, and then luckily, or if you're lucky, rather, you will find an actor that fills out the rest of it. And so I was happy to combine the elements of me that I thought were Lukish with the writing that Joel had provided. Because, on the page, like there's so much going on with Noah and Howie, played by Joel and Bowen, and so many relationships that they have to parse out that you have to add some certain things in there as an actor and as someone who's like trying to amplify the story just to make it feel filled out.